Hello, Gold Derbyites. Welcome back to another episode of Awards Magnet. I'm Deputy Editor Ethan Alter, and we're joined this week by Senior Editor Mia McNiece, and making his podcast debut, Senior Editor Kevin Sullivan. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. It feels great to be here.
And you're here on an auspicious week because we're going to be doing our deep dive into One Battle After Another, the new movie from Paul Thomas Anderson. We've all seen it. We're recording this earlier in the week, but by the time you see this, it'll be out in theaters for you to go see in a variety of formats. It's in VistaVision, it's in 70 millimeter, it's in IMAX 70 millimeter, it's in regular IMAX, and just plain old regular projection. So lots of different ways to see this, and you're going to want to see it more than once. I think it's fair to say, right? Both of you, do you think it's a more than once viewing?
Definitely. There's so much to take in, every scene, every little detail. I agree. Definitely more than a once viewing.
Yeah, I felt ready to watch it again pretty much as soon as it ended. I just wanted to get back in there.
100%. Yeah, no, I'm already planning and I got to see it in VistaVision. So I'm like, okay, next time do I see it in IMAX 70 millimeter? Do I save that for the third viewing and just do regular 70 millimeter? Again, it's for format nerds. It's fun. You can see it multiple times in multiple different ways. But we're going to give you our takes on the film. We're going to give you some Oscar predictions about how we feel about the film. And we're also setting aside a special spoiler space to really talk about some of the big twists that drop, especially in the third act. But don't worry, we'll give you plenty of warning before we get to that point. So you can bookmark the conversation and come back to it after you've seen it, because you'll definitely want to hear how we break down some of that stuff and get into the nitty gritty of the back half and spoilers and all that. But before we start, it's always good to give people a sense of where we're coming from with PTA. So I thought it'd be fun to sort of go around and each of us give our top 3 PTA movies and our least favorite. And maybe a couple reasons why. So Mia, do you want to kick us off? What are your top 3?
Sure. I mean, One Battle After Another definitely falls into my top 3. I think this movie, was hands down one of his best that I've seen. But the other two, I think, would probably be Magnolia. That one, sticks with me, and I just think it's one of his best. And I also really enjoyed Punch Drunk Love. I mean, I think Sandler's performance in that was amazing. Again, still holds up. So I think those would be my top 3. But there's so many great ones, it's hard to choose.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think the immediate question with One Battle after another is where it kind of falls in the filmography, and I think with someone like PTA, his movies have never landed exactly where they ended up in my estimation, basically after the first watch, and so I am aware of that with One Battle because the knee jerk is to go, it's top 3. People are throwing around it maybe his best. I don't know if I'm there yet, but it definitely could end up there. You know, without multiple views, it doesn't feel right to stick it in the top 3 yet. So for now, I'm gonna have to go with what I went into One Battle with, which is There'll Be Blood, Phantom Thread, and Magnolia. Phantom Thread I loved immediately, which was kind of unusual for me and PTA. And then Magnolia was one I had kind of rejected when I originally saw it back in high school, and then revisited it, I think, a couple of years ago, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I feel like I had aged into it, and so with that in mind, kind of going back to modern day PTA, it's this all very, very exciting time to be a fan of him right now.
I like that, Mia. You just went for One Battle right in there, the top 3. Embraced it right away. That's great.
No hesitation there. Yeah, exactly.
Right. For me, I tend to go Kevin's way. I think I needed a few more viewings before I decide where exactly it lands. I go There Will Be Blood at number 1. That's just, I remember seeing that for the first time. It was like a bolt from the blue. He'd been sort of building towards it for a while, and what he came up with was extraordinary. It's one I still go back to every couple of years and find something new in. Number 2 is probably The Master, although some days you ask me and that would be my number 1. I think The Master is such a beautifully strange movie, and it took me a few viewings to fully appreciate, but now I just dial into it every time I watch it. And then third as well, Magnolia, which I think is the one across all 3 of our lists, which is pretty great. And I think that says a lot about that film, its place in his filmography. And for me, it's the sort of perfect pivot movie. I don't think you get to the rest of his career if he doesn't get that movie out on film. Like with all its flaws and everything, maybe that hasn't necessarily always aged as well. There's so much great stuff in it, and he broke through in a real way and allowed himself to get to where he is now.
Even the soundtrack from that movie holds up. I listen to that all the time, all those Amy Mann songs, and it just brings you back to the film itself. So I think that's one that sticks with you as well.
And then I guess really quickly, we should go around least favorite. What would you say is your least favorite?
I don't know if it's my least favorite, but I think I was a little. I'm gonna go out and say Licorice Pizza. I saw what he was doing there, and I liked that it was a little bit of a departure from what he'd done in the past, and I found it entertaining. But out of all of the work and his, bold body of work, I do think that was probably lower on my list.
Yeah, I think this is going to kind of turn into not quite a dunk fest, but maybe like a layup fest. Yeah, Licorice Pizza. I think it definitely it's hurt by being the most recent one and the one I've visited the least. I also had a really kind of unpleasant viewing experience with that the first time around. I know that he in interviews addressed the infamous scene with the Asian accents. It landed so wrong to me. It left such a bad taste in my mouth that it's kind of tainted that one in my memory for sure. But maybe it's worth revisiting.
Yeah, yeah. I tend to go, and it'll be interesting for this discussion. The one that I have the hardest time jiving with is Inherent Vice, which is another Thomas Pynchon adaptation, and I think some of the flaws of that movie he almost kind of corrects with this one, which is also based on a Pynchon novel, Vineland. But yeah, I keep trying with Inherent Vice. I've watched it back a couple times, and I'm always for about an hour I'm locked in, and I think, oh, this is great. I was so wrong before, and then there's a turn somewhere in the middle there where I just lose the plot, and every time I watch it, I always lose it at around the same time. So that one is always is one that I want to keep watching to see if I ever do get it. I don't know if I will. I think that one just might escape me.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one I feel like I owe the most to. I've had that experience of again of what you're describing of going back and being like, he's firing on all cylinders there, and I think it's in the back half with everything kind of going off the rails, which I guess is sort of the point of that movie and the '60s coming to an end. But yeah, it's these things. I mean, it's what's interesting about him as a filmmaker. These movies aren't stagnant. I mean, it was my experience with Magnolia that it changed over time, and he makes things worth revisiting.
And what's really cool about One Battle, and we'll jump into that now, is just how it's really his first contemporary movie, I think, since Magnolia, thinking back, because everything since then has been largely period pieces. And this one does sort of start out in an earlier period before it gets to the present day. And it never feels completely contemporary. There's always elements of it that feel like it could be at any era until you start seeing people carrying iPhones. And then you're like, oh, okay, I know. Yeah, I'm in the present day. So it's interesting to see him back in the present after that long stretch of making period pieces, for sure.
Yeah, not only in the present day, but also super timely in all the topics it covers, as well as things that are in the news now, what we're discussing. Yeah, even just an iPhone connection. He's really staying timely, not just in the present day, but going hard out on these different topics.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. He did Punch Drunk after Magnolia.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. Yes.
But
right.
But that's an interesting point, though, because I mean, I think there's a reason that slipped your memory because that is a movie that is kind of out of time. Whereas Magnolia does feel very kind of rooted in the late '90s. But I think that it was been interesting. Him and Tarantino as kind of a two branches of an argument of some of our great auteurs of that age. There was this kind of pet theory going on the internet of do these guys know how to make a contemporary movie anymore? Have they sought refuge in the past because they don't know how to connect with this modern world? And I love how this movie is almost designed to be like just to slap that argument down so thoroughly, just to say like, no, I still know how to make contemporary movies, and I'm actually probably better at it than anybody else right now. It's so satisfying for someone who's, if you're a fan who's wanted to see what modern day looks like through that lens, and for him to really kind of revel in it, it's super satisfying.
And still bringing some of the techniques that he's really used well in his period movies. I thought a lot about There Will Be Blood watching this, especially with some of the Western landscapes he uses and some of the nighttime imagery. He really draws on a lot of what he's been doing in his period to bring it to the present day. And I think that it looks very different from the contemporary world he imagined in Punch Drunk Love, to your point, or Magnolia as well. So yeah, that's really been interesting to watch his evolution coming back to the present day now while still bringing some of those techniques. But let's dive into one battle after another. Here's just a quick thumbnail synopsis. Won't get too spoilery, but just so we have the basic setup in place. Leo DiCaprio and Teyana Taylor play Bob and Perfidia. They're a pair of revolutionaries whose activities antagonize a white nationalist military man who's named Colonel Stephen Lockjaw. He's played by Sean Penn. After Bob and Perfidia have a baby, one of their operations goes sideways, and then we jump ahead 16 years, and their child, Willa, is a teenager who's played by Chase Infinity, who's a newcomer. And she experiences the fallout from her parents' actions, and that sort of goes forward from there. I think that's a fairly basic summary. Anything you'd want to add to that? Sort of anything people should be aware of plot-wise?
Well, I think what's interesting about this film is there's so much action, there's so much going on, but at the heart of it, it is a father-daughter story, right? It's about the love between a father and a daughter and what a father will, the extent he'll go to for his daughter. So I think that, that's a good point that some people might going into the film might not realize. Tons of stuff going on in the film, but that's one of the main plot points.
So let's dive in. General takes. Mia, how did you? What's your overall take on the film? How did you feel coming out of the screening?
I was like, this is a movie. Like, this is amazing. There's everything that you would want. There's humor, there's action, there's great acting, and just even some of the scenes, there's a scene with Sean Penn and Chase Infinity in the background is just gorgeous. I mean, there's a car chase scene where you have these rolling hills where you feel like you're in the car with them. You don't know what's going to come next. So really, I thought it was great. I thought the humor was unexpected. I didn't think it was going to be as funny. And I thought there were some really important themes and takeaways as well from the film.
Yeah, I mean, it was a reaction that I think most, when I'm trying to think back, when I think I most recently had with probably Top Gun Maverick, of just this thing movies so hard and it feels really stupid to put it that way. But I think what you see is just like, supreme craft, from the filmmaking to the performances to the editing. It's just every single level. There is just so much institutional knowledge and well-honed craft. And that's always been there with Anderson, but I think he seems really purposely setting this in a very commercial package. And I think when he was doing that, kind of embracing the form of the blockbuster, it feels like movies used to feel. And it's I think Alison Wilmore in Vulture pointed out, just it's strange to compare it to other movies coming out right now, because it's just operating on such a higher level than studio filmmaking that we've gotten used to. It's incredible. I mean, and we can there's so much more to talk about, but that's just kind of where my mind is, big picture.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I don't know if I'm ready to put it in my top three yet. I definitely think it's my favorite PTA film since The Master. I think it's the one I have the least sort of complaints with. It's the one that I think he executes at the best level. It's also, I think, that Leo's best performance. It's maybe since The Wolf of Wall Street, and it has some of the same sort of comic elements that I love so much about that performance. So it's great to see him in this role, and I think it's a more successful version of what they tried to do, going back to Inherent Vice, with the Joaquin Phoenix character there, who's this pothead who just sort of stumbles through a mystery. And I think Leo is the same way here, but I think rooting it, to your point, Mia, in a father-daughter story gives it such more urgency and emotional stakes than it did in the case of Joaquin Phoenix in that film, where he was looking for his girlfriend in this sort of SoCal 70s landscape. This because of the contemporary setting, because of the father-daughter thing, there's much more urgency to Leo's quest. And I think that sort of fuels and propels the movie in a way that Inherent Vice sort of felt loose. And Chase Infinity also is wonderful. This is her first major role. She is terrific in the movie and just carries so much of the back half of the film, especially. And then the other thing that jumped out of me is just in terms of technique. I think there's another version of this movie that would have used narration to set up a lot of stuff and explain things. I'm so glad this does not have any narration in it. It just trusts the audience from the first frame to go along with the story and lets the sequence of events happen without having it be explained by a narration. Most likely would have been by Willa as a teenager. I'm so glad they left that out. Just let us experience it.
Yeah, you brought up a good point about how obviously Leo and is amazing in this. And it's fun that he got to work with Paul Thomas Anderson. I think, as everyone probably knows, he was originally going to be cast in Boogie Nights and then went on instead and chose Titanic. So now that they got to join forces again, I know the two of them, Kevin and I were at a screening that they were both at and discussed kind of wanting to work together all these years and then finally being able to do it. So it was fun to be able to see him in this role.
I think Ethan, you hit on a good point here. I think the emotions here are so much more accessible than they have been in the last the last run of PTA movies. I think he is still crafting a world that is supremely weird in a way that is so fun to discover, and I would consider it a spoiler in terms of talking about it at this point. That is the setting, but it is juxtaposed with these really kind of relatable emotions about growing older and maybe getting more conservative as you get older, and just the terror of being a parent. And that is, it's wonderful to see.
Absolutely. Yeah. This one really does feel rooted in his own family life and draws on specific things that I'm sure he's talked about with in the Anderson household. It feels very close to the bone in that way, for sure. Several moments in particular. But we know we're here since we are awards magnet. We should talk about the awards aspect of things. So the film sort of dropped like a bomb in the middle of the Toronto Film Festival because people were in Toronto seeing all those Oscar movies, and then they screened this, and suddenly the conversation shifted. And yeah, I think you were there for one of the first screenings, and the excitement around it was really palpable and drew focus away from the festivals. And right now, this is surging in a major way to Best Picture frontrunner. So where do we stand? What do we think about its Best Picture odds at this point?
I'm going to go on a limb. I'm going to show up big in my first appearance on the podcast. I think we might be done here. I think Best Picture might be wrapped up. I think there are movies that are wonderful out. I think there are movies that people will love as a part of this conversation. There are so many narratives here that would make it a compelling pick for Best Picture, and I think all of them are valid. You have PTA being overdue. You've got a movie that feels completely now, and an industry in a town that is looking for ways to vote to vocalize their dissent and dissatisfaction. The movie is just so easy to love. It's thrilling. I think it's going to do well in the box office, and I think that will even bolster the argument. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to call it.
You're going for the win, not the nomination, not just a nomination.
Oh no! I think it's got the win. I'm trying.
Wait, this is breaking news.
I'm really trying to show up here. I'm really gonna put myself out there.
Okay.
I think
laying your marker down.
Wow.
I think
this could be a historic moment on the podcast if it wins. Now we have to go back and replay it.
That's right.
You're already saying that.
I'm ready to eat some crow if this is the mistake that I'm making.
Okay.
But I'll make my debut really meaningful here.
Wow. It's still September and you're making this, right? Okay. Just letting you know. It's the old Siskel and Ebert chestnut when Fargo came out. It's just like I can't imagine a better movie coming out this year. And famously, we know Fargo won Best Picture, right, guys? That's how that went down, right?
That's true.
So maybe we'll see. We'll see about that. But that's kind of where I'm sitting right now.
Got it. All right, Mia, over to you. Take your shot.
Nomination, yes. I cannot be as bold as Kevin to say an actual win. I've seen some pretty good stuff already. I think it has some very stiff competition. I love House of Dynamite. I think that's equally as good. There's a few other things out there as well. Will it get a nomination? Yes. I think so. Would Sean Penn and Leonardo DiCaprio? Yes. And you have to also bring up this amazing, supporting cast. I thought Chase was amazing. I thought Benicio del Toro's character was like, he is like, I got this. His character, is like, I got this no matter what comes his way. I loved him in this film as well. So Regina as well, like such a great, she said so much just in some of these scenes with her eyes. So, for as far as the acting categories go, I think this is a really strong contender.
And I should say on the official Gold Derby charts, Kevin, just so you know, just so you're aware, Hamnet is currently leading our odds. I got to see that at Toronto. I can totally see why. I think that's going to be definitely a stiff challenge for One Battle. Sinners is still in second place. Sentimental Value is in third. One Battle is currently fourth, and then Wicked for Good is fifth. So those are the top five right now. I do definitely agree. Definite nomination, no question. It certainly, their stuff is there to win, and I think they're going to really position it well throughout the next few months. The one concern I have is I remember when The Brutalist landed, and it landed in the same way last time in terms of the just the excitement around it, the sort of the film bro-y aesthetics and everything, and that film did really well in the Oscar nominations, didn't ultimately win Best Picture. So that's where I'm sort of thinking there is a point at which it could hit, One Battle could hit a wall as we go along. But certainly, without question, it's going to be a major nomination player. Leo for sure. I think Sean Penn for sure. It'll be interesting in terms of supporting actress, and I think some of this gets into spoilers, so we can maybe talk about it a little more in depth in that spoiler section, because in terms of you have to talk about screen time and things like that. But Chase, I think it would be a great sort of debut performance for her to get recognized for, which would be great. One of the first times I think a major rising star gets that recognition in a while as Best Supporting Actress. So yeah, definitely excited to see this join the contenders, and it's going to be a major player for sure as we go forward. In terms of below the line stuff, I also was thinking cinematography seems huge. I think PTA's movies always look terrific. The format aspect of it will be great here. Again, you have the 70 millimeter, you have the VistaVision, so they can lean into that. The production design is wonderful. Colleen Atwood's costumes are great. So there's a lot of below the line support in the same way The Brutalist translated that way. Find a lot of support outside of the major categories as well.
I think costume jumps out to me, especially. I feel like between Bob's bathrobe and Willow's taffeta skirt and leather jacket, I feel like this is some iconic already costume design that really just kind of hooks into your brain. I think you can really see this show up in a lot of the technical awards I usually reserved for the big summer blockbusters, sound and editing as well. I think a major. I've made my feelings strong about this already, but I think we have a major player just down the ballot.
Yeah, same for Johnny Greenwood, his PTA's composer, who I think has done The Master and There Will Be Blood and many of his films. Delivers again with this film as well, and could definitely get a nomination.
It will be interesting to see, I think, especially on the technical side, how this ends up going up against Sinners, which, before this was coming out, I thought we had kind of our populist big blockbuster fare that's, expertly made. That could be a really easy vote for those technical awards, because, it's you can have your vegetable and your dessert at the same time. This is an entertaining movie that's really exquisitely made. And actually, it's a terrible metaphor. That sounds disgusting. I think it'll be interesting to see those two go kind of head to head, whether Sinners is too far in the rear view or just kind of how that lingers in the minds of voters. Will be interesting to see for sure.
The other thing I could see happening is sort of one of the split situations where Paul Thomas Anderson finally wins an overdue Best Director nod, and picture goes to something else, like a Sinners or maybe even a Wicked for Good, because certainly the first half of Wicked got a lot of nominations, and as often happens with sort of part ones of twos, they sometimes wait for the next one to honor it. So same with Avatar: Fire and Ash. That's been nominated. Both the previous films have been nominated. This will be the third one. There are two more supposedly happening, but those are a few years off. So there is that possibility where PTA gets his Oscar, and then the Best Picture Oscar goes to one of those sort of big blockbuster hits. Because I think you're right, Kevin, that this will do well. It's his most commercial film he's made in a good long while, and I expect it to do well. But it's not going to do Wicked numbers. It's not going to do Avatar numbers. So there'll be that interesting aspect to this year's voting as well. And then the other thing, obviously, too, is just sort of the ranked ballot issue with Best Picture, because in ranked voting, the number one choice almost matters less than number two or three. So I could see One Battle being a lot of people's number one choice, or enough of a group of number one choices, but maybe the number two or three film is has a broader sense of support, which again could be a Wicked, could be a Hamnet, and that's what winds up winning as a result. So that's the other thing I keep in mind about the Best Picture race versus others.
I mean, I still have to see Hamnet, but I just like the reviews coming out of the festivals of people just being like, you're gonna cut your chest open and rip your heart out and stamp on it. Like, I have absolutely no doubt it's a phenomenal film. I've loved all of Chloe Zhao's movies so far. But in terms of, what's essentially a popularity contest, I think maybe the movie that leaves you feeling good is it might have the edge, but I hold reservations until I see Hamnet.
We'll regroup after you see.
Okay.
Yeah, after we see everything, we're gonna regroup and we're gonna hold you to it and see.
I know.
If you feel this way.
I've already chiseled my pick in rock though. It's kind of a little concerning.
I love it. It's okay. No, the bold is the way to go. Live bold. I think PTA would appreciate it. Awesome. Well, as we mentioned, we definitely want to set aside some time for a spoiler discussion. So we're going to warn everyone now. We're about to start our spoiler conversation. So bookmark your audio file of the video at this point if you haven't seen it yet, and go see it, come back, listen to the rest of our discussion, because we're going to dive into specific scenes and spoilers. But before we do that, we're going to bring on another special guest, our producer, Andrew Merrill, another huge PTA fan making his podcast debut. Andrew, come join us. Yeah, there he is.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
You guys have never seen me before, but I have been editing Awards Magnet for a few months now. So hello, nice to finally be on the podcast.
Love it. How have we done so far on our takes? How do you feel about how we've handled One Battle? Do you agree? Any thoughts on your own about the movie?
Yeah, I kind of the same, very similar feeling of I had a gut check in the middle of the movie, and I was kind of like, I'm enjoying it, but like I don't know where it's going. And like sometimes it's hard to gauge a movie when you're like, we could end up on the moon. I have no idea where we're going with this thing. And when I got home, I was trying to talk about it with my girlfriend, and I realized that it was 2 hours and 43 minutes or 45 minutes, and I was like, oh, I could have watched another hour. I wanted to know what happened to every single character. Every single character, you could do a whole movie about that character, and I would have locked into it. It's a big movie, and as Mia said, it feels so good to go to a movie and like the storytelling is exciting. This year there have been more big studio films taking big swings, and it feels so good to go to the movies and actually be excited for a change. So yeah, I was blown away by One Battle. I thought it was wonderful. I've seen it twice now, and it was even better the second time. Even it felt even faster the second time. I don't even know how that's possible.
Are you ready to sign on to Kevin's the pitch that's going to win Best Picture? Are you throwing your lot in with Kevin?
I mean, I don't know. The Academy doesn't seem to. I mean, There Will Be Blood didn't get the love that it deserved. I feel like none of his movies get the love that they deserve from the Academy. I would love it to win Best Picture. I think that it says a lot about the time we're living in. I think, if there's not to dive into politics, but it's a political movie, and if you are concerned about a fascist government, boy, oh boy, does this movie make it look really scary to be living in a fascist government. It feels very tapped into what's going on right now and the energy. And I think that this movie would be a very interesting double feature with Eddington.
Oh, interesting. I like that.
What I loved about this film, though, is that you have these two main characters, Leonardo DiCaprio character and Sean Penn's character, and they both have similarities in that even though they're opposites, they are relentlessly pursuing a goal that they're going after, right? So Leo's character is falling off roofs, he's getting tasered, we're in the spoiler department, right? So I can
Yes,
I
we
can
are
say
officially
that.
spoilers. Yes,
He's falling off roofs, he's getting tasered. No matter what, this guy in a bathrobe just keeps going, but it's for the love of his daughter, right? It's for the love of it. Whereas you have Sean Penn's character, same thing, keeps going. I mean, this guy's losing body parts and, can't even walk, but relentlessly pursuing what he's after. But what he's after is ego and power. And then you see the fate, one is successful in or pursuing their dreams and goals because they have the right motives, while the other is not because of their motives. And I don't know if PTA was going for these kind of themes in pursuing that, but it's interesting. These two men, they will stop at nothing, but they have very different motivations for why they're stopping at nothing, and one is successful and one is not.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And we should say the big third act twist, just so it's out there, is turns out that Willa is actually Colonel Lockjaw's daughter and not Bob's daughter. So that's what we learn at the end of the movie. And it reframes the entire film, to your point, Mia, as the pursuit of two fathers essentially pursuing their daughter. And then her fate sort of lies in the hands of whoever winds up winning that battle, which is really interesting. And I think certainly one thing that occurred to me, and I'll float this as because one quibble I had with the back half is, I wonder if at a certain point Leo should have not been on the road in that final pursuit, because there is that chase scene where they're all sort of going to the same, trying to get to the same destinations. They're all trying to find Willa, and so much of that last part of that film is her story. I almost wish that Leo wasn't a part of it. I feel like at that point the movie hands off to Willa, and going back to Bob sometimes slowed the narrative down. So that's one. I think that quibble was sort of resolved by the final scene, where we get to see Bob and Willa have this really beautiful moment where they connect over a letter that's been left by Willa's mom, Perfidia, who is no longer in the picture. She's gone after the first 20 minutes. And so that brings it full circle. But I did think, man, I really wish this had just been Willa's story at the end. I didn't know if either of you felt the same way.
Kevin, didn't Paul Thomas Anderson discuss that in the screening, how they were trying to figure out a way to kind of give her back the power at the end of the film?
Yes, I mean, I think that was an interesting aspect of it, because one of the early stories that kind of came out about this movie, as it was finished, was about how poorly it was testing, which is a really an even stranger story in hindsight. But it does kind of shed some light into the process, which I do think was, this movie was, focus grouped, and there were efforts to make sure that this was really landing with an audience, and Anderson talked about kind of workshopping the ending and trying to find the final set piece, and almost the serendipity with which they found the hilly location that became the basis of that final chase scene. And he talked about it a little bit after the fact at the screening, but to the Bob point, I just love how useless the guy is. The movie. I mean, his character is structurally essentially one big joke that the movie basically almost happens as, nothing really changes in the plot of the story if Bob isn't in it, other than the fact that he is just demonstrating immense love for this young woman throughout this journey, and as the twist kind of reveals, it was someone that's not even his biological daughter, and that just kind of being the point of a dad in his position. I absolutely love it. And then infinite kudos for portraying the men that control this country as the loser freaks that they actually are. That I think that is the blow culturally that I feel like it just immediately makes it all time and just captures the moment so well. And it's so, I was in love.
And that was a very inherent Vicey thing too. I remember there's the point at which you get this sort of conspiracy, escalating conspiracy through the halls of California government. And I think there it was a little vague what's happening. Here they do, I think, again, PTA does a better job figuring out how to bring in penchant for conspiracy. And there's that great scene where we see one of the assassins that works for the white nationalist organization that Colonel Lockjaw joins, going through this sort of subterranean lair, and they have this whole meeting of white nationalists who are use Saint Nicholas as their guiding spirit. And it's
they're the Christmas adventurers, right? Like, that's what it's called. Right? This is brilliant.
We gotta put the name to it. It's one of the funniest things.
Yeah.
And the great thing is that the scariest looking white people you've ever seen in your life are saying it as straight faced as they can, which you're laughing, but then also you're like, oh my God, people like this exist, and this is so scary. But to go back to Leo showing up at the end, I love that Leo thinks he's the main character and that he's going to save the day, and he's working at it. He's really trying to do good, but like Kevin said, he's useless. And at the whole movie is him going, I'm, I'm trying to shape this world to be better for you, and you are still a child. You need to listen to me. And then by the end, he sees his daughter as, oh no, you are the next generation. This is your world now, and it's your world to fight for. As he lights a joint and leans back on the couch, and basically, it's like the adults running the world are tapping out. And I thought that was wonderful. And everyone is just looking to feel connected and feel safe. And I thought that was, I thought the movie did a very interesting job of showing that both sides, while they want different things and while their methods are different in some ways, they're very similar in other ways. And I thought that showing the revolutionaries as not perfect people, I thought there was a lot of interesting things to chew on. Sean Penn's character is despicable, and yet you see his humanity in it, and you see his longing and how kind of sad his character is. And I was blown away by Sean Penn in this movie. I have not been this impressed with the Sean Penn performance. I can't think of the last time I was like, oh, I didn't know he could do that.
I love how he sort of keeps himself almost stiff and stern, like the lame Lockjaw suits his performance so much because he's so rigid, and so it just holds himself like this the whole movie, and it's really something to see. The other quibble, minor quibble I have with the ending involves Sean Penn. He gets 2 death scenes. He's apparently killed once by the assassin who's dispatched to kill him, and he seems dead. But no, then we see him walking along the road, and then he survives Glenn Close style, only to be killed again by the conspiracy, by the white nationalist group at the very end. I think it's funny that he comes back, and his second death scene is fun too. But I don't know if we need it. Again, it's more for me. I love your points thematically in terms of Bob's storyline and also Lockjaw's storyline. I just wonder if pacing-wise it works, and maybe that'll refine itself on subsequent viewings. But pacing-wise, I felt like it distracted a little bit, giving him 2 death scenes and making Bob more of a part of that ending, which is so propulsive around Willow. So those are it was definitely a pacing issue for me in both of those cases.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I do think it keeps going with the theme of these, he's like a cockroach. Like he will not stop. He will just keep going and relentless in his pursuit. And also it just keeps you on your toes. Once again, you're just in this film. You're like, what is going to happen next? And then there he is again. And now he's in a conference room. And like, I think it's kind of consistent with that. But I do agree there was a little bit of the pacing because of it.
To get to the joke of him kicking his feet up on his desk in his sad little office because he's so happy that he's finally a Christmas adventurer. I'll take it. You know what?
That's yep.
I can't overstate the loser energy radiating off of the villains in this film, and it's so great.
That's a good point. In both cases, it ends well. It's a pacing question, and one of those things like, oh, it's indulgent. It's a little indulgent to go that extra beat, and so if there's any ding against one battle, it could be that maybe PTA indulges himself a little too much. But hey, Magnolia was a huge indulgence, and that movie's, as we all agree, is terrific. So there is something to letting him indulge himself in that way. It usually ends well in those regards.
I kind of to Kevin's point, I think that you need to see how lame the reward is. The whole movie is basically because he wants to get into this group. That kicks off the whole movie. That kicks off the whole chase. That's the only reason he's going after Chase Infinity, Willa, and then he gets it. I think it's important that he gets everything. Every struggle that he has done the whole movie was to get to this point, and it's a shitty office that is empty.
Like the typical, be careful what you wish for. Like, well, once you get it, it might not be what you expect. I mean,
and he has suffered to get into this group, which goes against everything that is in his heart. He is attracted to black girls. And like that's like the whole group is like the worst thing is mixing the races. And he lies to them and lies to himself to get into this group, to get um, accepted by a group that hates who he is in his heart, and how he's just killing himself, he's hurting himself. And I thought that that ending was so, I mean, you can look at it that maybe at the very end he realizes that they're the ones killing him. I don't know. That's, I think that's up to interpretation, but I just thought that was so the loser energy and how sad and
Yeah.
tragic, right? He went out just so desperate to have someone accept him, and I thought it was great.
That's a very good point. I did mention the best supporting actress issue being interesting because you have three really great actresses: Teyana Taylor, Regina Hall, and Chase Infinity, all competing for that slot. Teyana Taylor is out of the movie after 20 minutes, which I think people won't expect. I kept expecting her maybe to pop up at the end. She doesn't. So I'm curious to see if that impacts her campaign. Regina Hall also terrific in her scenes, not necessarily the biggest presence. So Chase Infinity, in terms of screen time, is the clear candidate there. But I do wonder how they'll navigate that. Did you have any thoughts about Taylor's potential Oscar campaign based on how she functions in the movie, that character?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's just Chase's screen time. It's also her performance is amazing. So out of those three that you just mentioned, I would lean towards Chase, but I thought the other women were phenomenal as well. But like you said, the screen time is very limited for Taylor, so it could affect her chances for sure.
Yeah, Regina Hall is just it's an unfortunate case of it just being too quiet of a performance. Like, I think every moment she's on screen, she's just radiating movie star energy and just like empathy, and it's crazy. And I'm so glad that we've got documented evidence that that PTA is a fan of protect. Was it Protect the Girls? What is the
Support the Girls?
Support the Girls. Yes. Two cast members from Support the Girls, and yeah, just a really special performance that I don't think is going to kind of meet the plot or bigness threshold that would usually kind of result in a nomination, but a really signed performance.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Regina finds Willa in the bathroom at the high school. And it's just this great shot where she comes in out of nowhere. And in that instant, Willa's life changes. And it's just, and the way the camera lingers on her face and Regina's only seen in the mirror. It's a brilliant bit of staging. And I just love that scene as one of the best scenes in the film.
I'm going to say this is just another case of like every single person could have had a whole movie. Like I could have had 30 minutes of Regina Hall going around. I could have had an hour at the nunnery where they grow weed. Like I could have lived there for an hour. The second time watching, I was picking up on Regina a little bit more, and her big thing is like, oh, Willa, your mom was a rat. Your mom betrayed the cause. And then at the end, she is tested and she fails her own test. Or that's how I interpreted it. They don't explicitly say that she ratted people out, but they said, hey, if you want to get out of this box that's covered in plastic, if you want to live, you better name some names. And then there is a cut of her getting into a car at the end looking miserable. So I think that this plays in once more that sometimes it's hard to live up to your own ideals, and that's a theme that's played throughout the entire movie, both with Sean Penn's character, Leo's character. Everyone is tested. Oh, you believe in this? Well, put your money where your mouth is, and a lot of people fail.
Well, we should wind this down, but just before we leave, I want to, if everyone should just give their favorite scene or shot from the film. Again, we're in spoiler country, so it can be something spoilery. Mia, what's the image or scene that's lingered with you since seeing it?
I think it's what I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast was when, Sean Penn's character and Willa are finally coming together in that church, and the background is just so eye-catching, and the power between those two and that acting was phenomenal. So I think that would be probably one of my tops.
Hard to choose. I think as a diehard fan of both Lost and the original Roadhouse, I think seeing Kevin Teague as kind of seems like one of the more senior members of the Christmas Adventurers, just put a big smile on my face. It's really purposeful casting, kind of getting some of that 80s, action movie trash into the milieu of the movie. It made my heart sing a little bit.
It's hard to pick because a lot of the movie just kind of float, like it's not real time, obviously, but it's like things are happening right after the other. When Willa gets picked up at the school, and that like the dominoes start falling of like everyone needing to get going. That whole sequence, Benicio del Toro, anything with Benicio del Toro was Sensei is amazing. It was like, can I join a karate studio now? Like I need this cool ocean waves in my life right now. I loved him. It was great.
Yeah, we didn't give enough love, I think, to Benicio in the spoiler space. That whole storyline that he gets, where because of what happens with Willa and Bob, he has this whole sort of Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad situation happening in his home, which is where immigrants are moving north, and so because of all this stuff happening, they all have to file out and move on to the next stop. And so the way that's handled is really, really terrific, and it's funny but also timely, and yeah, it speaks to the moment in such wonderful ways. I think my favorite shot, I mentioned the bathroom scene where Regina Hall confronts Willa, but I think the one that I still think about is in that section where the immigrants are moving on, and and Leo is escaping over the rooftops, and you have this great shot of skateboarders doing these jumps over rooftops in the dark, and they're just framed against the night sky, and it's gorgeous. It's seen in VistaVision, especially. It's pure cinema to use that word. And I just think about that moment. I've been thinking about the moments in that shot specifically since leaving the theater. It's just such a beautiful image.
But Bob falling off the roof was something that like my brain couldn't process in real time, that I was actually seeing that. Right. That's the one I need to go back and watch like 100 times, just the clip of it, or it's stunning.
Even just Bob and Willa saying goodbye to each other before she goes to the dance is so, any parent could relate to that. Was so funny. A much smaller scene, no falling or explosion, but just the dialogue between a dad and his daughter going off to a high school dance was pretty funny to watch.
Yeah. And because that seems so good, I'm glad they get that moment at the end, because it would have been sad if they didn't have that moment of reconciliation. That brings it together so beautifully. But
can we talk about how great the movie weaves comedy and how also intense and thrilling it gets? Like you'll laugh, and then like the next shot you'll be like, oh, this is not gonna go well, and then you're laughing again. It's quite the whole conversation of, is it a comedy or is it an action doesn't feel right, but thriller, it's a comedy thriller, which like how often do you get that? It's so weird.
And again, I think it's what Inherent Vice tried to do and didn't as successfully. And this one nails it. I think a lot of what he learned.
I love Inherent Vice. I'll stick up for Inherent Vice. Don't you be mean to my Inherent Vice.
That's great. I love it. I love that we have a defender. That's good to hear. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. This has been so much fun deep diving into one battle after another. Definitely see it in theaters this weekend. See it beyond this weekend. It's going to be a major Oscar contender. Going to be playing for weeks, and we're going to be talking about it for a while. So once you see it, hit us with your thoughts, comments, voicemails. Feel free to mention Kevin and say whether or not you're on Team Kevin in terms of if the Best Picture race is over and it's winning. We'd love to hear it. We'd love to hear support for Kevin's view.
Roast me.
Or that too. either support or roast. And stay tuned. There'll be more Awards Magnet coming soon. And as always, thanks and take care. We'll speak to you soon. Thanks for listening to Awards Magnet, Gold Derby podcast. Like what you heard? Leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Awards Magnet is produced by Andrew Merrill. Our logo is designed by Chelsea Sakura. Please like and subscribe to stay on top of all the awards news, and email us at awardsmagnet@goldderby.com.